Americans of all stripes all across the country have suffered terribly as a result of the economic crisis in the country. 8.5 million jobs have been lost, 7 million homes have ended up in foreclosure. Retirement accounts that people have spent years accumulating and building were wiped out, in some cases in a matter of minutes, as a result of the economic collapse in the fall of 2008.
And if we look back 18 months ago when this crisis first came about, we had regulators that didn't share information beyond their silos. We had a lack of transparency amongst the whole area of derivatives and that whole shadow banking market that in many ways created the interconnectedness that almost brought the system to a halt. And finally, when the crisis did arrive, we had to act in kind of an ad hoc basis because there were no procedures in place to unwind these institutions.
Obviously, a lot needs to be done to see to it that we never end up again in a situation where the gaps exist in our financial structures and the architecture of our financial institutions, that we never again find future generations without the tools to combat the next economic crisis, as surely there will be one, but to be able to respond to it in a way that doesn't allow it to grow to the level that we saw over the last couple of years. We're committed to making sure that bad decisions on Wall Street never again lead to the kind of disastrous economic results that occurred on Main Street. And we're committed to making sure that taxpayers never ever again are put on the hook for massive bailouts, such as the Bush administration paid out in the fall of 2008 and the early weeks of 2009. Wall Street and our Republican friends are entitled, of course, to their own opinions. That's something you have in great abundance around here, but no one's entitled to their own set of facts. And here are the facts when it comes to what our bill does. Our bill ends too big to fail. Bailouts end forever.
We've actually required that these firms' management put in place a process where they can demonstrate to the regulators that they can orderly unwind themselves in a bankruptcy process. Now, we agree with our Republican colleagues that bankruptcy should be the preferred process. But what we found in the past was some of these firms were so interconnected and there were international implications that there was no orderly process in bankruptcy. We've allowed the regulators, in effect, to sign off on their own funeral plans for these firms. Now, if this whole process doesn't work, and bankruptcy, again, being the preferred process, you've got to have that out of a resolution process. But the premise of resolution was not what we saw in 2008, where these firms were basically conserved. We put in place a resolution process that basically is a death sentence for these firms.
Secondly, our bill institutes strong new protections for consumers. Never before have consumers received the kind of attention within the financial services area that they deserve. Our bill provides that independent Consumer Protection Division Bureau to allow for independent rulemaking and examination and enforcement of those rules, so the consumers are not left behind in the process. And thirdly, our bill holds Wall Street accountable and mandates real transparency so that large banks can't gamble our money in the shadows of the financial system. That's what we do with our bill. Those are the major points of our legislation. Now, Wall Street and our Republican friends apparently want to leave in place the status quo. The status quo leaves us vulnerable should another economic crisis occur without any changes in the law whatsoever. Then once again, too big to fail will be in place.
Now, if there are other ways to do this, we'd listen. If there are other ways that get at this issue, that protect the taxpayers, that end the too big to fail, to make sure, again, that we never have a process that leads to taxpayer bailouts, I think the chairman, I know Senator Corker and I have said there may be other ways, but we need to hear specific suggestions, not broad-based partisan attacks. So we look forward to working with our colleagues to get this right. I again want to commend and thank the chairman for allowing me and Senator Corker and a series of the other members on the committee to try to work through these other issues. We took on too big to fail. Derivatives was taken on. I know the chairman and Senator Shelby have been working on consumer protection, but I think we can get a great bill and a bill that will stand the test of time.